All right, so today we're
Whether it's, figuring out your market strategy or even like launching a new product.
for sure.
Because apparently, without good bookkeeping, businesses are basically just guessing
Yeah, they're flying blind.
about their sales, their cash flow, what they're spending, all of it.
Yeah, and that's scary. I think, what this really highlights is like who depends on this information.
Right.
It's not just, you as the owner.
Right.
This guide emphasizes that your employees, investors, lenders,
Oh, wow.
even government agencies need accurate financial records.
Oh, I see.
So, it really underscores that this is not just like a nice to have.
Right.
It's truly a necessity.
Right. And it's not just a one-time thing either.
No.
The guide makes it very clear that bookkeeping is this ongoing process.
Continuous.
Continuous, yeah.
Yeah.
Starting with literally every single financial transaction that happens.
Yeah, every time money comes in or goes out.
It's constantly happening.
It's instantly.
Because a business's financial health is always in flux. Yeah, definitely. And, speaking of things constantly changing, the guide also touches on how the way we do bookkeeping is evolving.
Oh.
Because it points to this big shift toward online activities.
Right.
Driven by, the fact that we all have smartphones now, mobile apps.
Right, makes sense.
So this means, you can have a real-time view of your financial data pretty much from anywhere.
That's pretty amazing.
It is.
Now, this is where I thought it got really interesting. The guide was talking about how bookkeepers are actually expanding what they do.
Oh, okay.
Like managing payroll, reconciling credit card statements, all that kind of stuff.
So it's becoming much more comprehensive.
It sounds like it, yeah.
I think if we zoom out a little bit, we can see this kind of convergence between like traditional bookkeeping and accounting,
I see.
driven by all this technology.
Right.
Some of the things that maybe were exclusively handled by accountants are now being integrated into bookkeeping.
That's fascinating.
It is.
And it's not just individuals.
Right.
The guide points out that even consulting firms are using this tech
Yeah.
to offer better and cheaper bookkeeping and tax planning services.
More efficient.
Yeah, exactly. Efficient.
Yeah.
Which could be a game changer for small businesses.
Huge. Yeah, especially for small businesses.
Huge.
Yeah, trying to keep costs down.
Yeah, definitely.
This kind of makes me think, how do you see your business, your current or future business,
Oh. Yeah.
fitting into this evolving landscape?
Mhm.
Are you going to manage your own books?
Right.
Or would it be a smarter move to, take advantage of all this technology
Right. Outsource it.
through software or, hiring a firm?
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's do it.
Manual versus computerized bookkeeping.
Okay.
So the guide describes manual bookkeeping as basically, using physical documents, paper ledgers, all that stuff.
Like the old school way.
Yeah, old school, exactly.
Yeah.
Organized into sections. You've got your revenue, purchases, payroll, general journal.
Right. Classic category.
It does feel very traditional.
It does. The guide mentions that these manual systems often use the double entry approach,
Right.
which, every transaction has two sides.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting, even in these manual setups, that second entry is often generated automatically in some way.
Okay.
So there's still a little bit of automation happening.
Interesting. But there are some pretty big downsides to sticking with just the manual methods, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The guide highlights, the real danger of losing those physical records.
Oh, yeah.
Theft, fire, imagine all your financial history gone.
Poof.
Whew.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. And, even if we just compare it to digital options,
Right.
the guide points out that, manually copying and processing information, taking it off site,
Right.
that takes way more time.
Yeah.
And it also emphasizes that manual bookkeeping requires a good understanding of accounting principles,
Right.
which, not everyone has. And it's not always the case with, user-friendly software.
Right. It's not just writing down numbers.
No,
You have to understand the why behind it.
exactly. The
And-
logic
Yeah.
behind the numbers.
The guide also mentions how time-consuming it is to, put together reports manually.
Oh, yeah.
And that could really take you away from other important stuff.
Major time suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, doing it all manually just seems
Tedious.
tedious and, prone to error. Right?
Oh, yeah. Ripe for human error.
Yeah. Okay.
So now let's flip the script and look at computerized bookkeeping.
Okay. All right.
The guide lays out some really strong advantages.
Okay.
The biggest one, accuracy.
Okay.
Software takes care of all those calculations
Right.
automatically.
Once you put the numbers in.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. And automation, huge benefit.
Oh, huge.
Like automatically storing invoices digitally.
Yeah.
That's got to save so much time.
Versus filing those paper copies.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Huge time saver. And also, the guide talks about easy data access.
Oh, right.
Especially with online accounting software.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not tied to a specific physical location.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the accuracy, you've got the automation,
Mm-hmm.
and the guide also mentions reliability
Oh, yeah.
as a
Huge role.
key factor.
Yeah.
Because of the precise calculations.
Exactly.
And then, as your business grows, computerized systems, they can scale up.
They can grow with you.
Yeah, they can handle that increasing complexity.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Makes sense.
Because you don't want to outgrow your system.
Right.
You want something that can evolve with your business.
Definitely. And speaking of evolution,
Yeah.
speed,
Yes.
the guide talks about generating reports with just a few clicks.
Instant insights.
Yeah, you don't have to wait hours or days for that crucial information.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a huge advantage.
And security, too.
Oh,
With all that data being stored off-site,
makes sense.
you're protected, if there's a disaster.
Natural disaster?
Natural disaster, fire, flood, hopefully not human-caused.
Hopefully not, yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff there.
A lot of pros.
But the guide does, give a little warning about some downsides of computerized systems.
Right, there's always a flip side.
Yeah, like the initial setup can be pricey.
Yeah, you might have to invest in hardware, software,
Right.
and then there's the ongoing cost of updates.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also, the guide raises a really good point about fraud.
Oh, okay.
With more and more financial data being digital,
Right.
there's an increased risk of hacking.
Yeah.
Or even, someone within your organization manipulating the numbers.
Yeah, that's scary.
It is a little bit scary.
So that's a big consideration.
It is.
It seems like with all this, it's kind of a balancing act.
It is, definitely.
Right. Like, are you comfortable with the hands-on approach of manual systems
Mhm.
with, the potential risks that come with that?
Mm.
Or do the efficiency and automation of computerized systems kind of outweigh that initial investment?
Yeah, it's a security concern.
Right, and those security concerns.
Yeah. It's a lot to weigh.
It is. Okay, well, let's move on because the guide then takes us through a whole rundown of different bookkeeping software options.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So first up is QuickBooks Online,
Okay.
which apparently is a big deal, like globally.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty popular.
yeah. And the big draw seems to be its user-friendliness,
Okay.
especially for small business owners who are, not finance experts.
Right. They don't want to be bogged down with jargon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it offers the standard stuff like dashboards, customizable financial reports.
Mm-hmm.
It handles invoices, keeps digital records of your bills.
Right.
It's got payroll management, payment conversion, and it syncs with your bank accounts and credit cards.
That's convenient.
Yeah, super convenient.
Yeah.
But what's cool is the guide points out how adaptable it is.
Oh.
It's got tons of add-ons.
So you can tailor it to
Yeah,
your specific needs.
exactly. But it can get pricey.
Makes sense. The more features, the more costs.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is Sage Accounting,
Okay.
which aims to simplify things, with mobile and web access.
Okay. So you've got options.
Yeah, exactly. And the guide highlights this version, Sage Accounting Start,
Mm-hmm.
which is specifically for solo entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And it's pretty affordable. It offers income and expense tracking, bank reconciliation.
The essentials.
Yeah, the essentials.
Yeah.
And if you upgrade, you get more features like budgeting and cash flow projections.
Okay.
So the guide lists a bunch of benefits for Sage, like fewer errors,
Mm-hmm.
time savings, competitive pricing, automatic data backups, and easy invoice creation.
Okay.
Sounds pretty good.
It does.
But it does say that Sage might not be perfectly tailored
Oh.
to really, really tiny businesses.
Interesting.
Yeah. There are other options out there that might be a better fit.
I see.
And they mention other versions of Sage, like Sage 50 Cloud, 300 Cloud, 500 Cloud,
Okay.
which are designed for larger organizations.
Right. So they've got a whole suite of products.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
All right. Then we've got FreshBooks,
Okay.
which the guide calls a top pick for small business owners.
High praise.
Yeah, right. It started out focusing on invoicing and tracking costs,
Okay.
but now it also integrates with your bank statements. It can handle payroll, company payments, timesheets,
Wow, it does a lot.
It does a lot,
Yeah.
and it plays well with CRM and customer service apps.
Oh, so it integrates well with other tools.
It does, yeah, it
That's
does.
a big plus.
It is. The key features they highlight are invoicing, expense tracking, project time tracking, digital payment options, and managing your billing history.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive.
It is, and the guide really emphasizes how intuitive it is.
Makes sense. You want something easy to use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, then we have Zero,
Okay.
which is, according to the guide, pretty similar to QuickBooks Online and FreshBooks.
Okay.
It offers all those typical accounting features,
Mm-hmm.
but where Zero stands out, apparently, is that it lets you have unlimited users for free.
Oh, wow. That's a big differentiator.
It is, which could be a huge advantage for, slightly bigger small businesses.
For sure.
The guide also mentions that it's really easy to switch over from QuickBooks,
Okay.
and they highlight some unique features like customizable transaction types and really detailed financial reporting with a dashboard to track your cash flow.
That's pretty powerful.
It is. That unlimited user thing, though, is a game changer,
For sure.
especially for businesses with a growing team.
Yeah, because some platforms charge you per user.
Exactly.
So that could be a significant cost saving.
Definitely. Okay, then we have Cited, which is presented as this budget-friendly option, specifically for freelancers and sole traders.
Okay.
It handles your invoices, quotes, expense tracking, keeps records of your customers and
The
suppliers.
essentials.
Yeah, and it's all about efficiency, flexibility, and affordability.
So, if you're a very small operation,
Right,
just starting out,
right,
having a tool like that covers those core needs
right.
can be really helpful
Makes sense.
without overwhelming you.
Exactly. Okay, then there's Zoho Books,
Okay.
which is described as the strategic tool for, managing your cash flow and budgets,
Okay.
especially for small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And they're known for being easy to use, reliable, good customer support, all that.
That's important.
It is. So they let you create custom invoices, receive payments online,
Okay.
and it helps you generate those key financial statements,
Mm-hmm.
profit and loss, cash flow, balance sheets.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guide mentions this user-friendly dashboard with financial summaries and charts so you can quickly see how your business is doing.
I like that visual overview.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Pluto,
Pluto. Okay.
which is this digital payment and tracking system
Okay.
that really streamlines accounts payable and receivable,
Okay.
and it integrates with QuickBooks and Xero.
Okay. So it plays well with others.
It does, it does.
That's good.
A key feature seems to be its ability to really speed up payments,
Okay.
even to people who don't have a Pluto account.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, by sending money directly to their bank account via email,
Okay.
potentially saving on those wire transfer fees.
That's a nice perk.
It is,
Yeah.
and it automatically reconciles payments, helps you categorize them,
Okay.
automates manual data entry.
So it takes care of a lot of the busy work.
Yeah, it sounds like it could really boost efficiency.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with all those payments.
Right, yeah. Okay, and finally we have bench accounting,
Bench accounting. Okay.
which is presented as this interactive web app
Okay.
that provides accounting and bookkeeping services,
Okay.
but with actual professionals managing your financial data.
Oh, interesting. So it's a more hands-off approach?
It is.
Okay.
You just upload your information,
Mm-hmm.
and they take care of, categorizing transactions, consolidating everything with your different accounts.
So it's basically outsourcing your bookkeeping
It is, yeah.
to experts.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And they offer different pricing tiers, monthly or annual plans.
So it's flexible.
Yeah, so it can work for businesses of different sizes.
That makes sense.
So there you have it, a whole range of options.
Wow. Yeah, it's a pretty diverse landscape.
It is. And it really seems like the best choice.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on, your needs, the size of your business, your budget.
Your comfort level with technology.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right fit.
Yeah, it's not one size fits all.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Okay, so the guide then moves on to these fundamental bookkeeping rules,
Okay.
kind of like the guiding principles.
Okay.
And the first one is choosing between the cash and accrual methods of accounting.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah, so the cash method is the simpler one.
Okay.
You record income when you actually receive the cash and expenses when you pay them.
Right. Right.
Accrual is a little more complex.
Oh, yeah?
You record income when it's earned
Mm-hmm.
and expenses when they're incurred.
Okay.
even if the cash hasn't actually changed hands yet.
Oh, okay.
The guide says most small businesses go with cash
Makes sense.
just because it's simpler.
Yeah.
But the accrual method can give you a more, like, long-term accurate view
I see.
of your finances.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it depends on, what you're looking for,
Right.
what level of detail you need.
Okay.
And also, it points out that the accrual method often requires double-entry bookkeeping,
Oh, right.
which we talked about earlier.
Makes sense. So yeah, the method you choose, it really does shape how you track and report your financials.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a fundamental choice.
It is. Okay, rule number 2 is all about how you're actually going to document your financial transactions.
Okay, so how you keep track of everything.
Yeah, whether it's, manually writing it down,
Mm-hmm.
using software,
Yeah,
or getting help from a pro.
right. Those are the main options.
And the guide points out that manual recording,
It can take a lot of time
time-consuming. Yeah.
and increase the chance of errors.
Yeah.
Whereas software automates a lot of that
Right.
and keeps everything centralized.
Right. That makes sense.
But it does still suggest having those paper backups,
Okay.
just in case.
Just in case. Okay, so rule 3 is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Choose the bookkeeping or accounting software that best fits your business,
Which we just went through.
which we just went through a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, a lot of options.
And then rule 4 is about setting up your chart of accounts,
Okay, what's that?
which is basically like a list of all the different types of financial transactions your business does,
Okay, I see.
broken down into categories.
Like income streams.
Yeah, income streams, types of expenses, all that.
Right, so you could track everything in an organized way.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And the guide explains that if you're using the accrual method,
Mm-hmm.
you'll probably be using double entry bookkeeping.
Right, that's the balancing act.
It is.
Every financial event has two sides,
Right.
a debit and a credit.
Okay.
And it affects at least two different accounts.
Okay, that's where it gets a little tricky.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it gives you a more accurate picture of your company's finances.
Okay.
Whereas single entry bookkeeping, where you just record each transaction once,
Right.
that might be enough for really small businesses.
Okay, so it depends on the complexity.
Yeah, how many moving parts there are.
Okay, that makes sense. Rule 5, the guide is very adamant about this one. Open a dedicated business bank account.
Yeah, that's important.
Crucial for keeping your business money
Mm-hmm.
separate from your personal finances,
Yeah.
which is vital for accuracy and tax filing.
And also liability.
Right, yeah.
You want to maintain that separation between your personal assets.
Right, that corporate veil.
Exactly, the corporate veil.
Okay,
So even if it's not legally required, it's generally a really good idea.
okay,
And usually you'll need to register your business name first.
okay. That makes sense. Rule 6 is about being clear with your payment terms.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Like, how do you want to get paid?
Yeah.
Cash, credit card, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to make those terms super clear on your invoices.
Absolutely.
The guide says this is essential for good cash flow.
Yeah. You don't want to be chasing down payments.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay, rule 7 is all about maintaining your accounting system.
Okay.
It's not enough to just set it up.
Right.
You got to make sure you're entering data correctly and on time.
Yeah. Consistency is key.
Consistency, yeah.
You don't want to let things pile up
No.
and then end up with a huge mess.
Exactly. And the guide recommends setting aside regular time for recording transactions.
Makes sense. Schedule it in.
Yeah, like make it part of your routine.
Yeah, whether it's daily, weekly, whatever works for you.
Okay, rule 8 is about continuously evaluating your approach.
Okay, so like checking in on your system.
Yeah, what worked when you were starting out?
Mm-hmm.
Like simple spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Might not cut it as you grow.
Right. You might need to upgrade
Right.
to a more robust solution.
And the guide says to regularly look at the time you're spending and the costs
Mm-hmm.
to see if you can find more efficient and cost-effective systems.
So you can free up your time
Right.
to focus on other things,
Exactly.
the things that really matter.
Okay, and rule 9, this one's simple,
Okay,
but crucial.
hit me.
File it. The guide says to promptly file all your financial documents. Sales records, payment confirmations, invoices, all that paperwork.
Keep it organized.
Keep it organized, yeah.
Yeah.
And they suggest establishing a daily routine for entering bills and expenditures.
So it becomes a habit,
Yeah, exactly.
not a dreaded task.
Okay, so those 9 rules, that's a pretty good foundation.
Yeah, those are solid principles to follow.
Yeah. Now, the guide gets into key financial records.
Okay,
First up, the cash account,
the cash account.
which tracks, all the cash coming in, your debits,
Mm-hmm.
and all the cash going out, your credit.
Right, simple enough.
And the guide says you should regularly reconcile this with your bank statements.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
at least monthly
Yeah.
to make sure everything lines up.
Make sure there are no discrepancies.
Right.
Yeah.
And to account for any transactions that haven't cleared yet.
Like outstanding checks.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Okay, then we've got accounts payable.
Accounts payable, often abbreviated as AP.
Yeah, AP. This is where you record those short-term debts.
Okay.
The money you owe to others when you buy stuff on credit.
Okay.
So the guide gives this example.
Mm-hmm.
Say Company X buys supplies from Company Y, gets billed later. That creates an account payable for Company X.
Right.
And, we'll get to this, an account receivable for Company Y.
Okay, so it's two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
Right.
And accounts receivable, AR.
AR.
This tracks the money that people owe you.
Okay, I saw
Your
that.
customers who bought your stuff on credit.
Right.
So in our example, when Smith & Sons Ltd. sells toys on credit,
Okay.
the amount they've invoiced, that's recorded as accounts receivable
Okay.
until they actually get paid.
Right, so it's money you're expecting to receive.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then there's inventory,
Inventory.
which is defined as, all the goods you have that you plan to sell,
Okay.
whether they're raw materials, partly finished goods, or completed products.
Right, stuff you're going to sell.
Exactly. And the guide explains two main ways of tracking inventory.
Okay.
Periodic,
Mm-hmm.
where you do a physical count at the end of like a year,
Okay.
and continuous,
Mm-hmm.
where your records are updated in real time.
Oh, okay, so there's a more automated option there.
There is.
Okay.
And importantly, inventory is considered an asset on your balance sheet,
Okay.
and any changes in your inventory directly impact the cost of goods sold,
Oh, I see.
which is on your income statement.
Right, so it's all connected.
It's all connected.
Okay,
The guide recommends doing a physical inventory at least once a year.
just to double check.
Yeah, just to make sure your records match reality.